very interesting session on digital transformation, future of work. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister, Dr. Bosun Tijani. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Can we please put hands together for him? And I'd also like to say a big thank you to Google for sponsoring this session. We will start off really quickly with the minister's opening remark, and then we'll have maybe a few questions, one question for him, and then we will now join the main panel conversation. So please, can we stand up and make welcome the minister, please?
I wasn't told I was going to do opening remarks, but it's an exciting topic, which I'm happy to obviously speak to. Please, you can be seated, thank you. I'm still in the startup world. So it didn't occur to me that you were all standing for me. I think thank you all for being part of this conversation. Thanks to NESG as well for the work they've put into. Can we get the music to go down? No, I won't sing. Special thanks to NESG, the chairman is here, for the work that you've done for many, many years. I personally think we should be modeling and creating more NESGs. Because there's absolutely no society that can move forward without the role of think tanks and bodies like yourself, inspiring how we think about change, bringing people together to talk about it as well, so that we can actually get to the bottom of how to move forward as a society. So I think the work you've done consistently and sustainably over the years is something that we should all celebrate. And perhaps we should give them a round of applause for what they've done. I'm not going to spend too much time talking to, where we are with digital technology in particular and how that is shaping our world. But one thing I would like to highlight is that technology is not new to humanity. I think we all know that. Across the different industrial revolutions, we've seen technology support humanity to actually create value. But I think the biggest challenge we have is that we're dealing with a special kind of technology or set of technologies at this time, which has the power and potential to truly disrupt every aspect of our lives. The fact that this set of technologies can process data at a manner that we've never seen before means that even what we know as humans will be challenged by the impact of these technologies. The ability to also store significant amount of data as well. We put them at a point where they may challenge our role in society and our role in the world as humans. So as such, we have to be extremely attentive to them, but also find ways to ensure that there's no nation that is left behind. And I think lastly is the ability of this set of technologies to permeate different aspects of society and the pace at which they're doing so. Whether you look at their role in education, the way they're changing how we train our people, or you look at their role in public health, which affects how we deliver public services. And when you take all of that into consideration, then the question you start to ask yourself is, you can't really make much of these technologies if you don't have the workforce to power it. Which is why when people talk about the future of work, it sounds like something that is just a futuristic topic that we should all engage in. It's actually an existential one. It's a conversation that we need to prioritize, because if we don't prioritize it, we're going to wake up in 5-10 years' time and we'll be with this big challenge that we can't address. Whenever I talk about artificial intelligence, I see people who tell me we should be talking about poverty alleviation. Why are you focusing on AI? But the reality is that poverty alleviation is a wicked problem. It's the kind of problem that when you're overly obsessed about it, it will consume you. And as you fix it, you realize that you've actually not fixed it because the world is moved on from the solution that you think you're creating. So as we try to deal with our urgent issues, I think we also have to be futuristic in the way we're doing it. And that's the only way we can be sustainable. It's almost like saying today that Africa doesn't contribute to emission, and because of that, we're not going to participate in the conversation. By the time we wake up, we will be the ones pulling the world back. So it is important that we have this conversation, and that's why conversations on future of work is important. And we're at a very, very good place. If you look at it, the global powers that are typically responsible for powering technology, they're with population that is aging, but also declining as well. So their population is reducing, but at the same time, the age bracket is going up, which means these nations can't power the development that we need to see with technology. But if you look to Africa, over 40% are young people under the age of 25. It's even more exciting when you come to Nigeria, where you have over 60% of our people. And our population is projected to keep growing in the next couple of years, which means, as against looking at that as a burden, we should be looking at it as an opportunity to actually power the global workforce that is going to be required in 5, 10 years' time. And we're already doing it, but we're not going to do it sustainably and efficiently if we leave it to pockets of individual excellence and desire and drive. As a government, we will need to put our resources behind actually intentionally building a pool of talent to power the development and application of technology in Nigeria, but also support it across the world as well. But government is oftentimes not the most efficient way to deliver these services or this kind of dream. So we're going to also require the private sector to look at it not just as an opportunity that is there for us to take today, but an opportunity that is there for us to build together so that there's something that we're constantly tapping into in many, many, many years to come. So on that note, I'll stop there and take us into the fireside chat, whatever.
Yes, thank you so much. Do we have just one question for the minister?
I'm here.
Great. So I guess we have the minister for the conversation.
Go with you. Oh, okay. So
okay, great. So if we can take maybe one question from the audience. And sir, you can sit.
I can see.
Yes, please. Do you have any questions? Great. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, my question is very simple. In terms of Nigeria's, my name is Shola Kayode, and I served as the Nigerian representative to UNIDO in France. My question is, in this age of industrialization, which is digitally driven, we're lagging behind in terms of bringing up young ones that will take over and graduate into the digital realm. And that informs the teaching of science. What, in your own opinion, should be a strategy towards meeting this? I give an example of Costa Rica. Intel, everybody uses a computer, you find this computer contains Intel. And when the investors were going there, they actually requested for a place where people are, youth are educated at a reasonable level where they can read and write. But in terms of teaching of science and technology in Nigeria, we are lagging behind. What, in your own opinion, being a member of the cabinet, will you portray as a strategy and policy we can reverse this trend, especially to catch them young in the primary and secondary schools to be able to key in as future scientists? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, sir. I think there are two sides to the answer to your question. So there's the one side as to whether we're lagging behind as a people or as individuals. I think the technology that I was talking about has democratized knowledge significantly, where those that are driven in Nigeria today don't have any barrier to their ability to pursue their dreams. And there's evidence to back that up in the last 10 years. The Nigerian tech startup ecosystem is the best on the continent. Funding to startup, I've been saying this everywhere. Last year was about 5 billion. Almost 20% of that came to Nigeria. You know, despite all this picture that we paint of the challenges. And the pictures are factual to a large extent. I think where we're not, or where we need to wake up is actually taking advantage of this opportunity as a nation. So for a long time, we've taken advantage of the opportunities as individuals, which is what we tend to do with technologies, right? Individuals will find ways to acquire the knowledge. And technology now makes it easy, really. You can learn anything online. And we're seeing a lot of the people who wants to be technologists taking that path. Most of them employed by some of the best technology companies in the world. I've worked with a lot of them. So as against us looking at it as an initiative that we need to embark upon to support our young people, I think we should be looking at it as an opportunity to actually develop the nation. Because there's nothing at the minute that stops Nigeria from becoming a net exporter of technology talent, just as India did. That opportunity is there. We have a pool of young people who are extremely interested in learning. We also don't require as much investment as you probably imagine in 10, 15 years ago, when you need to build the best academic institution, the best labs. The best of the content that you can find in places like MIT is available to a lot of people online today. So what we need to do is to be intentional about saying we want to be a destination for technology talent. And that's what this government is doing. We have a mandate from the president to create 1 million technical jobs. We've actually taken it upon ourselves to train 3 million technical people from across the country. The application was opened just about 9 days ago. We've seen close to 500,000 young Nigerians applying to be part of that program. We're working with a lot of partners to ensure that we're not just depending on government resources to be able to deliver that set of intervention, but we're also being open about the way we're approaching the intervention. We're not approaching it from the perspective that we know exactly how this is going to play out. So we've designed an approach that takes us through prototyping it, starting with just 30,000 people in the next 3 months, learn from what we've been able to do with these 30,000 people. Are we able to train them to the point where they're good enough to find jobs? Are we able to get critical number of them to also find jobs? And if we're able to do that, after that first 3 months, we're looking to scale it to 10% of our target, which is 300,000. And what we learn from that over the next 18 months is what's going to lead us to hopefully achieving our target of 3 million. And this approach is really rooted in the fact that this is not just a target that we're setting just to excite the populace. It's a target that we're setting because we know if we're truly able to train 3 million Nigerians to become technical talent, that Nigeria will feel the impact. Even when people choose to leave the country, the number is big enough for us to still have a critical mass of them that will stay and bring value to the economy. So this is the approach we're taking. And again, we're asking that everyone should join us on this journey. The country is at a very special place. I know a lot of people will talk about the fact that things are tough for us. I think things are where they are globally, not just for Nigeria, because everyone came out of COVID. The technology disrupted workforce and businesses significantly. Some countries have been able to catch up, while others are still struggling to catch up. And for us to catch up, it will need to be our collective responsibility, not just the government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Please, we'd like to take a quick picture with the panelists, so we can release the minister.
I'd have loved to stay with you guys, but it seems like I have to go somewhere.
The more elaborate conversation. So can we have the panelists please join us on stage? Yes, and the Google rep also, please. Chairman, please, can you join us? Thank you so much. Okay, I'd like to invite my panelists for us to now continue the conversation. Please, can we make welcome Mojolua Adeyemi, the head of brand and reputation, Sub-Saharan Africa Google. Can we also make welcome Mr. Kashifu Inuwa Abdullahi, the Director General of NIDDA. Yes, I'll be here. And finally, let's make welcome Mr. Vincent Olatunji, the National Commissioner, NDPC. Thank you so much for joining us. So there's been a lot of talk about the opportunity that there is in the global workforce, how technology has broken the barriers, how people can work from anywhere now. So there's a huge opportunity, how most of the world is having a declining workforce. Africa is having an increase, a young and increasing workforce. But yet there are a couple of things that are still barriers to harnessing the full potential of this opportunity. And so today we're going to be discussing how do we take out those barriers? What are the roles of different players within the ecosystem to take down those barriers? So from the regulatory standpoint, from the government standpoint, from the private sector standpoint, what are the things that need to be done to be able to take down those barriers, unlock the market, and allow us to capture that value? So I would like to start with the DG of NIDDA. I know recently there was the digital literacy framework that was released, which is incredible work, I must say. What do you think is the role of government in developing curriculum for digital literacy? And this is at different levels, so entry level, intermediate level, expert level. What's the role of government in doing that? But also bearing in mind that we have to keep abreast with the ever-evolving demand from the private sector and from the labor market. How does the government play a role and continue to evolve in that process?
Okay, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. Firstly, when you talk about the barrier, for me, the biggest barrier is the knowledge gap. When we bridge that knowledge gap, we will remove any other barrier. Because if you look at the knowledge or talent, is the human component of the technology itself. Technology cannot evolve on itself without the knowledge and talent. And we in Africa or Nigeria, our greatest resource is that talent, our human capital. So how can we harness that to achieve the development we are yearning for? And also this knowledge and technology is like yin and yang. If you have the technology without the talent to drive it, it will not take you anywhere. And if you have the talent without the technology also, you will not get there. So to trigger that, during the COVID-19 lockdown, we realized that many people are at home or out of school as a result of lockdown. And also the work or the way we work have changed. Many people don't have that skill to catch up because most of the thing transformed online. And for you to be able to be part of that, you need to have that knowledge to use the social or the digital platforms. So we started conceptualizing, coming up with the digital literacy framework in 2020, just immediately after the lockdown. And when we started, because also, you know, we don't want to be like, we are taking over the Ministry of Education's responsibility, because anything to do with education is their own co-mandate. But also we have a mandate to develop the IT, and to develop that IT, we need that knowledge and digital skills. So we started throwing out the idea to crowdsource on how best can we do it. Then we started bringing stakeholders together, discussing about it, and later on we've agreed instead of reinventing the wheel, why not let us look at the existing digital literacy frameworks around the world and see how we can adopt and adapt. And we ended up using the DIGCOM and the UNESCO framework. We combined the two. The DIGCOM has, I think, 5 competency areas, while UNESCO 2. So we took the 5 from the DIGCOM and 1 from UNESCO, making it 6 competency areas, and with 23 individual competencies. So this is digital literacy framework. The idea is we need to have our citizens to be digitally literate and be able to safely and responsibly use this technology. So based on that, we have started now, we have signed the framework. It's already a regulatory instrument. And it's not like a NIDA framework, it's a national digital literacy framework. And everybody, all critical stakeholders are having ownership of that framework. Ministry of Education is part of it and is taking ownership when it comes to reviewing the curriculum. And also we have development partners like GIZ, even sponsoring policy dialogue conversation on the implementation standard and implementation strategy. So we've started the policy dialogue here in Abuja, and we intend to go to 3 other cities, Kano, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. So the idea is to get everyone on board so that we can create an ecosystem. It's not just government responsibility, because our target is to achieve 95% digital literacy by 2030. And the minister now has set a midterm target for us to achieve 70% by 2027. And we look at our age demographics and other factors that can help us achieve or not achieve that. And if you look at Nigeria, almost 60% of our population is beyond 25 years. That means they are within formal education age bracket. Yeah. So if we can do that curriculum review and add digital literacy in our curriculums from kindergarten to universities, it will easily help us to achieve that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And there's a lot of work. It's very clear the amount of work that has gone into that, and how also the drive for implementation. You're talking about going beyond the framework, Mojola. Maybe you can help us just some clear, specific recommendations. What are the things that we need to think about and factor into implementation? And you also know how the digital space, and this is one of the key things I like about Google, is that Google is at the forefront of digital literacy drive, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent. So, but we also know that the demand is changing as quick as the curriculum is being developed. So what are the key clear recommendations that we can put into consideration as we go into implementation of those frameworks, but also ensuring that they are updated regularly to meet the demand in the market?
Thanks for that question. I mean, DJ has said quite a lot in terms of like digital literacy and the importance of that and all the work that's been done around that. Even as we think about the curriculum is important for us to think about even the basics, right? So there's some basics that already exist. So in terms of like just basic maths, science, education, how do we strengthen that? You know, within our educational institution. And then beyond that, how do we ensure that even this digital literacy curriculum is actually institutionalized? And like in every school, children are going through STEM education, not from the primary schools to the secondary schools to the tertiary institutions, and then going through other courses around digital skills. We've been doing a lot of work on digital skills. So in 2017, we made a commitment to train 10 million Africans on digital skills. In Nigeria alone, we've trained over 4 million people on digital skills, right? And this includes not just young people, but even adults, right? Women, people around in the society generally, right? Just trying to enable, people to just adopt, digital technology, and so that they're not left behind, as the Honorable Minister mentioned. In addition to that as well, I think it's important for us to start thinking about skills and not just degrees, right? So to focus on skills. So in a lot of job descriptions still, people are looking for people with BSc, MSc, all of these kinds of things. Are you trying to hire a computer science graduate, or are you trying to hire somebody with SQL that can code in Python, code in C++? What exactly are we looking for? Yeah. How do we basically begin to focus on the skills and not necessarily on fancy, packaging in terms of like degrees and things like that? And how do we implement that, not just even in the private sector, but also in the public sector? So, and recognize that. So recognize some of these online courses. The minister was talking about how there are many, like you can sit down here and you can basically acquire a skill as someone that went into MIT. Yeah. But that would not be recognized in today's, in our establishments today, because it's not backed with a certain certificate or that we traditionally recognized. So how do we begin to recognize skills rather than just recognizing the things that we've traditionally recognized? Beyond that, the minister also talked about, the part of the work that we're doing to train 3 million technical talent, and how do we connect that with jobs, right? Because that's the tricky part. You can train many, many, many people. And we've done it. But at the end of the day, the goal is, what are we training people for, right? We're training people to get jobs or to create jobs, right? At the end of the day, to drive economic empowerment. So it's how do we connect? And there are many programs. So in the public sector and the private sector, there are many programs that even NIDA, everyone is doing around, digital skills, but also supporting startups. But how do we begin to connect the dots? Yeah. Right, even supporting SMBs and things like that. And we do a lot of all those programs as well. One such example was last year, we actually piloted an initiative where we took graduates from our career certificates programs, and we matched them directly to startups that have gone through our Google for Startups Accelerator. And we're basically just saying, how do we help these people to get a leg up? Right? How do we give them that opportunity of an internship, an apprenticeship? Because again, you see, I always make a joke about a long time ago in my career where e-commerce was just sprouting, and someone put a job description and basically said, they were looking for someone with 10 years e-commerce experience. I said, I beg, when did this thing start?
when did the industry start?
When did it start? And this was many years ago. This was like in 2017. Yeah. When did it start? So we have all these kinds of things where we're looking for people with experience that does not really exist, right? And then we also say, these people need to have the experience for them to get the jobs. But how are we ensuring that we're actually helping them to have the experience so that they are to get the jobs? Other approaches are like apprenticeship, right? How do we take people from like skilling, but how do we put them in apprenticeship so they're also on the job learning, right? They're learning on the job, they're building the required job work experience, because work experience is truly important. We all know that. For the HR people in the room, come for me. We know that that's also, it's important, but how do we put that side by side? It requires us to think differently. Lastly is about public-private partnerships, right? We're all doing many things. Many multinationals in the room, we're all doing skilling programs in one form or the other. But how do we basically pull all of that together as a galvanizing force under one vision? We've talked about the 3 million technical talent program. What is the convening vision that we're all driving towards? And how do we ensure that whatever we're doing actually lands us to that goal? And it's just not, doing it for the sake of CSR or doing it for the sake of looking good in general.
Thank you. So you can see how much, we can see how much there is need for the convergence to ensure that there is synergy, there is no duplication in the work, but then the last bit is there is scale. And Mr. Vincent, I'm coming to you very shortly, but before I come to you, just back to the DG of NIDA, when we start thinking about scale, and again, outcomes. So one, we're not training people for training's sake, right? We're training people so that they can land jobs. Any training that doesn't end in productive work is not necessary, right? So for that to happen on one hand, and then for this to scale, digital infrastructure, public digital infrastructure becomes very key, very vital, especially as we begin to talk about people in underserved communities, not just the Abuja and the Lagos boys and girls, but when we start talking about the people in the communities, how do we ensure that, and what's one is, what is the role of the public digital infrastructure, one? Two, how do we ensure that there are more of these kinds of programs that level the playing field and make access available to people in the hinterlands and also makes it possible for scale?
Okay, thank you very much. So the idea of the training, we have two initiatives we are working on, the digital literacy and the tech talent. Digital literacy is for us to be able to use the digital devices and platform safely and responsibly, and we want every Nigerian to have that ability. The second one is the tech talent, which the Honorable Minister talked about building 3 million tech talent and creating at least 1 million jobs. But we are even looking at beyond that. Even the 3 million, we can put them on jobs after the training because there are vacancies globally, not only in Nigeria. And we are looking at, after training, how can we place 1.5 million in the local jobs while 1.5 on international jobs? They can live in Nigeria and work remotely. So, and also there is that vacancies available. According to Conferi, by 2030, there would be 85 million talent deficit globally, which could result to $8.5 trillion unrealized annual value. And also, according to PwC report, the Nigeria brand exports, the optimal path to developing Nigerian economy. They say that currently there is about 4 million vacancies globally. And Nigeria can conveniently provide between 1.5 to 2 million coders to work remotely. And that can help Nigeria earn about 50 billion US dollars. And it can even help address our forex challenge. So there is availability for this placement. So the 3 million tech talent program we launched is about creating that ecosystem. It's not just about the training. We have the trainers, we want them to be part of it, and the training, not only training in Abuja and Lagos, in 36 states. And also, we want partners to be part of it. We want Google, we want all big techs, we want the development partners as well as subnationals, state governments and local governments to be part of this ecosystem. And we need placement organizations that can place participants on jobs after the training. Already we have signed MOU with some of them that can place locally and some internationally. So looking at this will help us to create that pipeline end to end, from the supply end to the demand when it comes to the talent. While the second aspect of it is building our own digital public infrastructure. You know, when you look at it, under our strategic blueprint, we have policy for digital public infrastructure. The idea is we build roads, railways, and airports after the second industrial revolution to move goods from one place to another. Today we are in a digital revolution where we need to move data from one place to another. Therefore, government and private sector need to start investing in public digital infrastructure as well. And also we need to look at it not from the business, but from the social responsibility part of it. I know Google is doing a lot in terms of infrastructure, even taking it to unserved and underserved communities. So other big techs also need to do it as well. And it's going to be a win-win. The more people you connect, the more business for you. So it's just to provide that. And building that also is beyond just physical infrastructure. We need to build super apps. We need to build public goods as well. And these super apps, where we don't want a situation whereby we can be locked by one vendor or contractor. We are looking at how can we build the Nigerian DPI stack. Because if you look at government digital transformation or e-government, it has different stages. You can start like by just conceptualizing the idea, training the people, putting the processes in place. Then you have silo investments, like where we are in Nigeria. Individual ministries, agencies are investing in silos. But we want to have a consolidated backbone, which will provide an opportunity for our startups to build different digital services and offerings on top. And that can help us to easily scale and expand it to subnationals like local government, state government, which do not have the capital to invest to build their own. Awesome. So we have a target by end of next year, we should have a standard for DPI in Nigeria. And by end of 2025, we should have the Nigerian DPI stack, where we can get as many innovators, startups to start building different service offerings for individual MDAs. And that can make it more agile for you to just, what you need is just to build your service and connect APIs with others to exchange data seamlessly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And now, Mr. Vincent, just coming to you, talking about exchange of data, talking about putting 1.5 million Nigerians to work on a global scene. A couple of things come to the fore. Now, when you have one or two people here working globally, some things are critical, but the magnitude of the problem might not showcase. But when you're having a 1.5 million people, when you're building out the digital infrastructure, a couple of things come to the fore. And some of those things are data sharing agreements across borders. What are we talking about in terms of data sharing agreement? We're talking about cybersecurity. We're talking about cyber protection. Where is the role of these things, and where is the nation as it relates to building out what these policies are that would protect Nigerians and protect Nigerian data and also allow us get into that future without any bridges?
Thank you very much. I think globally, there are about 5.19 billion people that are regularly connected to the internet. And when you are connected, you share your data, sometimes your name, your telephone numbers, your email addresses, sometimes your bank details. And because of that, the need for adequate protection of this personal data has attracted global attention, and the whole world has even put in place appropriate safeguards other countries where we share data. That is what we need to look out to ensure that in terms of accountability, that is data controllers, data processors, wherever they are accountable for the data of any Nigerian that you share with them. These are things that we need to do, and we cannot live alone. We cannot live in isolation. The world is there a global place. As I said, about 5.19 billion using internet on a regular basis. We are connected through over 15 billion devices, and this is even expected to go by 2030. Where is our position as a country? And that is why, by having a law, by having a DPA in the country, we are already part of the global trend. Now, recently, just about last week, we joined the Global Policy Assembly, made up of about 130 countries globally that have their data protection laws and data protection supervisory authorities. In Africa, about 24 countries now have their laws and their DPAs. About 34 have their laws without DPAs. When you have your law, you don't have your DPA, nobody recognizes you. These are things that we need to look at, and which is already happening globally. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vincent, just a follow-up question to that. Yes, you can clap, please. I like this kind of conversations because it's interesting to know the things that the country is putting in place, right? Many times, and I think this is one of the key things that Nigeria needs to work on, especially in government, is putting out the work that is being done to the general public to know what is actually going on and also know how to assess these things. And that's why I also like the idea from the DG talking about having a super app where you can access the different services available from the government. But now just a follow-up question. So we're talking about cross-border data agreements, but also on that real-time conversation that's going on now in many countries, there's also localization of data. And where does this, how do we marry these two things and also have a good mix between them? Now, when the country says we're opening our doors, look at the Nigerian startup ecosystem, for example, there's a lot of foreign inflow in terms of investment, right? With all these investments coming in, many of the companies have to register overseas. So many of the local companies are now international companies, which is great. But there needs to be a fine line between of course, the data sharing, but also the localization of data agreements. How do you see the balance between these two in ensuring that again, the ecosystem is not stifled, but again, we're also protected on this side?
I think why people keep talking about data localization is the issue of sovereignty. For you as a country to be able to have control over the data of your citizens, to protect their interests, their rights, their freedom when they share their information online. Now looking at it, can we really live alone without interacting with the outside world? Can we say all the data, personal data we use in Nigeria must reside in Nigeria? Is it possible? Whenever you sit in your room, you buy stuff from companies from different parts of the world. You get services from companies all over the world. Remote work that DJ just spoke to. You sit here in Nigeria, you work for countries in different parts of the world. My daughter is just 24. She goes to work only once a week. She works from home. And a lot of that, and these are parts of the things that are coming out post-COVID. Yeah, there are so many downsides to COVID, but a lot of things that were not imaginable pre-COVID are now happening. And that's why at times when we even say future of work, I feel a bit uncomfortable. It's here. We should be talking about new ways of work, not future. But if you talk of future of work, it appears so futuristic. It's too far, we need to. But it's here with us. Now what do we need to do in terms of localization and cross-border transport? What we have done in our own law in the country is to do data classification. Mm-hmm. What categories of data must remain in Nigeria? Mm-hmm. And when they remain in Nigeria, we have to look at storage, security, the caliber of people in charge of data storage or that you're even sharing your data with. Then you talk of cloud computing and stuff like that. When you have all these things in place, then you now look at, okay, what categories of data can we really say must remain local in terms of security data, for instance, which you don't want to share with another group. But really speaking, in reality now, I really say you don't want to share any data. Now, there are some that are allowed to go to any part of it, like I said, your name, your email address. For instance, you go on Amazon, you buy stuff. Where does your data reside? You don't know. These are things that we need to ensure that we have in place that, yes, there is a balance. And our law, if I some people who are speaking with the Canadian Privacy Commissioner about 2 weeks ago, was like, our law is the most robust as we speak, because it just came out this year.
There are laws that already passed about 2 years ago. They don't even think about emerging technologies. Now we talk of Internet of Things, blockchain, robotics, virtual reality, augmented reality, which nobody thought about 20 years ago. We don't even know what will happen in the next 5 years. And that is why we have the power within the law to issue regulations that will be able to address issues coming up with emerging technologies. And that is why even in the era, we are talking of privacy by design and by default. So right from this moment you are designing your database, what you want to store here, what you want to share abroad, you're already thinking of privacy. And these are things, measures that I think we can put in place to ensure that we balance this thing. We cannot live alone. That is the truth.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as I bring this conversation to a close, we're going to open up the floor for questions from the audience. But I just have one question that I would like each of my panelists to just take a stab at, and again, very briefly and precisely as much as possible. So basically now, when we're bringing together the digital public infrastructure, talking about emerging technologies, talking about cybersecurity and positioning the nation as workforce for the global stage, what are the strategies that, and for this, I want us to talk about not just on the government side, also from on the private sector side, what are the clear, deliberate strategies that we can put in place to enhance our digital effectiveness and our competitiveness. Now, why this is very important for us is, and a couple of things have come out already, right? We've seen what the government is doing, the goal from the minister, the goal from the presidency, where we see what Google is doing. We've heard the call for collaboration. So beyond these key things that have already been showcased, what other things do we need to put in place, both from the government and from the private sector, taking into nuance all of these things to ensure that we are positioned effectively and competitively in the global market? So maybe we'll start from you, Mojola.
Okay, quite succinctly. I think it's just important for us to make sure that we're working in partnerships, from the public sector side, but also from the private sector side. So working together, so a bit more consultative, collaborative, inclusive way to, building some of these regulations. While technology is very powerful, right, and all this emerging tech, it's really powerful and it has the potential to really enable human lives, right, and to help us to even actually accelerate and grow as a country or as a continent. It's also important for us to make sure that we're managing the risks, effectively. But we could err on the side of one in terms of like managing that risk and stifle innovation. So, but how do we do that? How do we make sure that we're not doing that? It's by working together. So working together as the innovators, the technology companies, as well as the regulators, working in a consultative way that enables us to actually achieve the goal, making sure that we're building technology that serve the human race, that serve Nigeria, that serve the people, while eliminating or managing the risks.
Awesome, thank you. DJ, sir.
Thank you very much. I think for me, firstly, we need to identify our competitiveness and the effectiveness when it comes to the technology itself. I think we are competitive when it comes to talent anywhere globally. We cannot compete maybe when it comes to manufacturing and other things. But when it comes to talent, we can compete with anybody. And we have competitive age also in terms of our youthful population. So if we agree this is our competitive advantage, we need to work together to build on that. Then to achieve that, I look at it from two perspectives when it comes to strategy. Firstly, we need to reimagine ourselves as a government, as a private sector, as a nation, as a continent. We need to reimagine ourselves within the global ecosystem. We agree we have youthful population. We agree we are talented because we have shown that in the area of music, art, film, and so on. And I believe we can do same when it comes to technology. Then secondly, we need to reinvent our social contract. We need to bridge the trust deficit between the government and the private sector. We need to stop the blame game and work as a team. Everybody has his own responsibility, and there are things government can do, private sector cannot do, and things private sector can do and government cannot do. But if we work together, nothing is impossible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Vincent, over to you, sir. DJ, can you pass that to Mr. Vincent? Thank you.
So I just expatiate on the area of partnership which Mojola mentioned and the digital. We need to work together. Your government is there to just give policy direction on what we want to achieve. But in doing that, we need to involve stakeholders in the private sector, the academia, even civil society groups to be able to decide where we are headed in terms of policy, in terms of regulations. Then we want to I'll give an example. I think Mojola mentioned about the need to match these skills that we're developing with job opportunities. In the data protection ecosystem, for instance, what we have in our law is that every data controller or processor of major importance in Nigeria must designate a data protection officer. Data protection officer, this is a new skill that is just coming up. And in Nigeria, we've already identified 500,000 data controllers and processors of major importance. You can now, and those of us that are certified data protection officers in Nigeria, we are less than 5,000. That's a gap of 495,000. You can now imagine if you focus on developing skills, retooling guys. And the good thing about it is that you don't need to be an expert in technologies. You will not be a lawyer. Yeah, I keep joking with my lawyers that I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see any big deal what you guys are doing. Before you become a certified, I hope there are no lawyers in the room.
They'll come for you.
Before you become a certified data protection officer, because even when you are certified, that does not confer competence on you. You need to still learn on the skill. You cannot imagine if you train 495,000 people out of this skill. I will give you, the law says you must have a DPO. You don't have, that's a breach of the law. This is like matching government policy with the skills that we are developing. 2, infrastructure, access. Like over 65% of Nigerians live in rural areas. What level of access do they have to all these things that we're even talking about? So the stakeholders, the private sector organizations, the telcos, don't look at where you can only make money. Go to rural areas, put infrastructure there where people can have access. Schools, what kind of infrastructure do they have? NIDA has done so much in terms of providing digital learning centers in schools, in communities. How effective are these people using, how effectively are these locals using this technology? So we need to all work together to ensure that when government gives the policy direction, private sector, they come in, provide a lot of things that would stimulate what government has done. Then in terms of advocacy, which is really key, at times you don't even know that you can do this thing. So if there are people that can come in the area of advocacy, create awareness, then we build capacity. With all this coming together, I think we'll be able to achieve. We have talents in Nigeria. We have crazy people who have crazy ideas that can match anybody in any part of the world. Only what we need to do is to properly coordinate ourselves, partner together, work together. Let's have a shared vision that we're all pursuing. We'll get there. And the whole world, they are even looking at us. That these people, they are coming and something big is about to happen.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. At this point, I'd like to make the floor open. Do we have maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience? Can someone help me with the mic?
Thank you, the panelists. Really appreciate the talk and the plan we have for the future, especially on equipping people with digital skills. Now, my question has to do with affordability and availability of work tools. If we are talking about equipping 3 million in the next few years with those digital skills, they need to face the world. My question is, are you still going to give them those tools, or is there a plan around making these things available for people to access? Someone said, one of the panelists talked about 65% of our people being in the rural areas. And we know people in the rural areas, it's going to be very difficult for them to get this thing. So I want to know, the policy or the plan, do you have something in that looks at availability, affordability of these things? Thank you.
Okay. For me, I look at it from two perspectives. Firstly, is it working? The Honorable Minister talked about poverty alleviation. You cannot alleviate. And also in strategy, there is what we call push and pull. Don't push things to people. Provide something for them so that they can pull it. If you say you give devices free, that is not scalable and it will not work. But the government has designed student loan. This 60% are within school age bracket and they are qualified to take that student loan. You can take a loan and have a device. And also, we've been engaging with people like the OEMs and even some big tech. How can we come up with a scheme for like NYSC co-members that anybody that need a device can take a device and get it be deducted from his monthly allowances? So there are many these things, but the best, I think, is to work with everyone, government and private sector, to see how we can get it democratized. And also when it comes to innovation in general, the best innovation is when you democratize access to devices. So also it's a challenge to the private sector to come up with a way to crash the cost so that everybody can afford it. If you look at development in the US, it happened when Henry Ford came up with T-model of Ford to democratize access to car. And Isaac Singer came up with a sewing machine that family can afford to use it at home. So is from both sides. The government is trying to provide student loan and other enabling environment for the private sector to invest. And also the private sector should look at how to crash the cost.
Thank you. I have two questions here from our online audience, one for Jola and one for Mr. Vincent. So I'll start with Mr. Vincent. Mr. Vincent, the question is that the Malabo Convention was just operationalized. Is Nigeria planning to ratify it? What does that mean for Nigeria as it relates to the future of work, if we do or if we don't? And then I'll just call the question for Jola also. So Jola says, how can government maintain regulatory agility in the face of rapid technological advancements, ensuring that policies keep pace with the changing landscape of work? What policy innovation approaches might be useful? So that's your question. So maybe we can start with Mr. Vincent.
Okay, thank you very much. The 2014 Malabo Convention was on cybersecurity and personal data protection. We are all 54, 55 African countries now agreed to have put in place measures that provide safeguards for cross-border transfer of data. We are talking of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, where you are looking at having a single market for Africa. Is it really possible without cross-border transfer of data? It's not possible. So that was part of what came out of it. And for a year of ratification, 15 countries were to ratify. And early about, I think around March or May this year, we had 15 countries that ratified. And since we got in that number, it is binding on all African countries. So we don't need to ratify again. We actually made a move to ratify because the bureau was still under NITIDA then. We actually wrote to the Attorney General to make, because the process is cumbersome. you need to involve a lot of stakeholders before your country can actually ratify. The Ministry of Justice, they will need to review it and do some other things. But before we could do that, we already had 15 countries in Africa that have ratified the decision. So it is binding on Nigeria now. So any African country that did not participate in the ratification or whatever, you can't say, yes, you are compelled to. So we are already in. And more importantly, that we have a law, we have DPA. In terms of compliance, we are here. And to a large extent, this has really positioned us as a country that is ready for digital business. And looking at what Mr. President is doing in the area of foreign direct investment, a lot of countries now, if you don't have your law and your DPA, they are not willing to do business with you. With that we have, as part of Malabo Convention and ECOWAS Subcontinent of 2010, we are part of it already. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mojola, while you answer, once you finish the question, it would also be good for you to Google sponsor this again. Thank you. To just also know, please put your hands together for them. They deserve it. But we also want to know what are all the different Google initiatives, right? That again is driving towards future of work that young people can be a part of. I'm sure every one of us here is a connection to a wide network of people that want to be part of the movement. So what are all the initiatives that we can key into, that young people can key into? And also, what is Google's vision for future of work as it relates to Africa and Nigeria also? So, but over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think I already answered the question already, by the way. So I think that in terms of like creating an enabling regulatory environment, but also just making sure that that is done in a collaborative way. And I must definitely commend NITA because they've been doing that. As well as the ministry, right? So just making sure that we're bringing together not just the public sector, but also the private sector in coming up with these regulations. So that the goal, as I said, is not to stifle innovation. The goal is to make sure that the innovation, technology is doing what it should be doing and is benefiting society, is benefiting people, and is not causing a risk or harm to people. So from that perspective, the collaborative approach. From the things that we're doing as Google, I mean, there are quite a number of things that we're doing in terms of the future of work and making sure that people are ready for the future of work. As part of our Grow with Google initiative, we have a number of skills building initiatives that we run. Part of it is our career certificate programs, right? The career certificate programs is really helping people to develop, future relevant skills, right? Things like project management, UX design, data analytics, project management, e-commerce, and digital marketing. And these courses can be done on a self-paced basis. Typically, we estimate that people will do the courses over a 6 months period, if they take their time. Some people even end up doing it in 1 month, right? Nigerians, we have a lot of also. They end up doing this in 1 month and all of that. In Nigeria alone, we've trained over we've certified 8,900 people have completed the courses, right? And out of that, 85% of them have said, this has basically given us, as part of our impact report, has basically affected our jobs. Either they got a promotion, they got a raise, or they found a new job, right? So our career certificate programs are one of those. We have other programs for developers as well. We have our developer ecosystem, our developer circles, where people basically come together in communities to learn emerging technologies and to build their skills. In addition to that as well, we have initiative for small businesses. And one of those is the Hustle Academy, where we're helping SMEs. I can't remember what session I was in. It was talking about, we can't also, be thinking about talent and thinking about where they will, we should be thinking about where they will go. And the small businesses are the biggest, employers of labor. So in terms of that as well, we're helping to enable these small businesses to help them to be digitally ready as well, and to future-proof their businesses. So Hustle Academy is one way that we do that. So g.co/Hustle Academy, you can find out more information about that. And then also on our Grow with Google website as well, there are myriads, like the minister said, there are myriads of trainings that you can get from things like, I'm just trying to learn about digital marketing to, I'm trying to learn about artificial intelligence, right? Myriads of training that you can get for free. So definitely encourage everyone to have a look at those and to continue to push that out to young people everywhere to continue to upskill themselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have one last question and then we'll call it a wrap for Mr. Vincent. It says, What is NDPC doing in protecting data at subnational? The president says, I can confirm some states hire companies for digital services which are not certified.
Yeah, thank you. I think what we're doing is to collaborate with the states. And we're happy to say that some states have started filing their audit report now, compliance audit report. Lagos State, we were with them last year. And they are all the ministries in Lagos State, they have even appointed DPOs, data protection officers, working for them, coordinating their data protection activities. Plateau State, they are doing very well. Lagos, Oyo State. So all we need to do is to work with them, because a lot they don't even understand what you're talking about. When you talk of data privacy, even at the national level, at the federal level, when you talk of data privacy, I've been giving out my name and data for years, nothing has happened to me. Not until you now give them practical experiences that this can even lead to death. We give instances. This can even lead to the loss of identity. They can impersonate you. They can do this. Give practical experience that we have seen, or somebody that in the process of capturing his name, he was captured as a female, whereas he's a male. He gets to bank, he can't get services, he can't get his passport, he can't get his driver license, he cannot travel, he cannot. These are implications. Or somebody that went to hospital and maybe by the time they did his diagnosis, by the time the guy had HIV/AIDS. By the time he got home, most of the neighbors were already aware. How did it happen? Or a lady that went to the same hospital in Abuja here, the lady was diagnosed with prostate cancer. A lady. So these are, you see, so by the time we bring it home to them like this, oh, so this is possible. Or all these digital lending companies that will identify some groups in society, give them loans, you default once or twice, they start circulating your pictures. This guy is fraudulent, is this, is that. That has actually led to death. There was a lady that committed suicide because he said he couldn't bear the shame. Or the father of a driver that had high blood pressure, when he saw that about his son, he collapsed and died. So it's only when you give them these instances, oh, it's possible. So we are going to the state gradually, but have we even addressed what is happening at the federal level? Some ministries, federal ministries, they don't even understand what we're talking about. There was a survey we did when we started. Compliance level in the public sector was just 4%. That was what really pushed us to go to the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to obtain a memo that all MDAs must comply with data privacy. Within 2 months, it decreased to 9%. By the time we are doing this year, I'm sure it will have even doubled. Okay. So we need to do it. We just started last year, by the way. So we have to do it gradually. Let's get reasonable mileage at the federal level. Then gradually we go to even local government. We need to go to local governments. So it's a gradual process. We'll get there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'd like to say a very big thank you to my panelists. Can we please put our hands together for the panelists? Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for this. Thanks to the NESG, and obviously thanks to Google for hosting this panel. I think we'll just take a picture and then we can all go for the other sessions.
So while the photography is going on, I know we want to take lunch. Just be a bit patient and I'll tell you the logistics for lunch. Thank you. Okay, so for lunch, we are going to go by tables so that we are orderly and we can leave here on time. Your table will be called. There's enough food to go around. So I'll be starting with this table. Just be a bit patient. Once our panelists exit the room, you can go for lunch. So those on this table, you can go for lunch, please.